My name is Margaret Turner, and I'm 38 years old. 3 months ago, at my husband's funeral, my mother-in-law grabbed my arm in front of 200 guests and told me to get out because I was never really family. She said I'd get nothing from my husband's estate and that she'd make sure I'd be living on the streets. But when the lawyer read the final clause of my husband's will, she fainted right there in front of everyone. Before I tell you what happened that day, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy this story. I'd love to know where you're watching from and what time it is there. Are you in New York at midnight? California at 9 p.m.? Or maybe somewhere across the world? Drop a comment below. Now, let me tell you about the day my entire life changed. The funeral home was packed with over 200 people that gray October morning. I stood beside Robert's mahogany casket, my hand trembling as I touched the cold wood one last time. My husband, my best friend, my protector, my whole world for 12 years, was gone at just 41. The cancer had taken him so fast. 6 months from diagnosis to this moment. 6 months of watching the strongest man I knew fade away, his hand growing weaker in mine each day. But even in those final weeks, drugged and exhausted, Robert would squeeze my fingers and whisper, "I've taken care of everything, Maggie. You'll be okay." I believed him. God, how I believed him. The funeral director approached me gently. "Mrs. Turner, we're ready to begin the service. Would you like to take your seat?" I nodded, turning toward the front row where immediate family traditionally sits. That's when I saw her. Patricia Turner, my mother-in-law, already positioned in the center of the first pew like a queen on her throne. Her black Chanel suit was immaculate, her silver hair perfectly coiffed. Not a tear had smudged her makeup. She looked up at me with those cold blue eyes, the same eyes Robert had inherited, though his had always been warm. For a moment, neither of us moved. The entire room seemed to hold its breath. Then Patricia shifted her designer purse onto the seat beside her, effectively blocking the space. Her message was crystal clear. Behind her, Robert's younger sister Jennifer caught my eye. She started to stand, her mouth opening to say something, but Patricia's manicured hand landed on her daughter's knee. A warning. The funeral director stood frozen, clearly uncomfortable. 200 pairs of eyes watched, waiting to see what the grieving widow would do. I had a choice to make. "Margaret, dear," Patricia's voice carried across the hushed room, sweet as poisoned honey. "Family sits in front. You understand, don't you?" Family. After 12 years of marriage, I wasn't family. The whispers started immediately. I could feel phones being pulled out, the subtle shift of bodies angling for a better view. Someone behind me gasped. These were Robert's colleagues, our neighbors, my friends, all watching me being excluded from my own husband's funeral. Jennifer half rose again. "Mom, that's not—" "Jennifer." One word from Patricia, sharp as a blade. Her daughter sank back down. My legs felt like water. The funeral director touched my elbow gently. "Mrs. Turner, there's a lovely seat in the second row, just behind the family section." Behind the family section. Behind Robert's ancient Aunt Mildred who'd met him twice. Behind his cousin Derek who'd borrowed money and never paid it back. Behind everyone who shared his blood but not his life. I could have fought, could have made a scene, but my husband was lying in that casket 10 feet away, and the last thing I wanted was to turn his funeral into a spectacle. Robert had been a dignified man. He deserved a dignified goodbye. "Of course," I heard myself say, my voice steady despite the tremor in my chest. "I understand perfectly." Patricia's lips curved into the slightest smile. Victory. I took my seat in the second row, my view partially blocked by Patricia's elaborate hat. As the funeral director moved to the podium to begin the service, I noticed Patricia lean over to whisper something to Harold Morrison, Robert's lawyer, who sat beside her. Morrison glanced back at me, his expression unreadable, then quickly looked away. Something was wrong. Something was very, very wrong. 20 minutes into the service, the funeral director announced it was time for family remembrances. We'll now hear from those who loved Robert most. I stood, my prepared speech trembling in my hands. 3 pages about the man who'd taught me to ski, who sang off key in the shower, who left me love notes in my coffee mug every morning for 12 years. Excuse me. Patricia's voice cut through the silence like a scalpel. She hadn't even turned around. Real family will handle the eulogies, dear. Real family. The funeral director looked between us, mortified. Mrs. Turner, Patricia, Shirley the widow. The program has already been arranged. Patricia held up the printed funeral program, my name conspicuously absent from the list of speakers. We have Robert's mother, his sister, and his business partners scheduled to speak. That should be sufficient. 200 people watched me stand there, speech in hand, being told I couldn't eulogize my own husband. Someone's phone camera flash went off. The whispers grew louder. Jennifer stood abruptly. This is wrong. Margaret should... Patricia's head snapped toward her daughter. The look she gave Jennifer could have frozen hell itself. Sit down. Jennifer's husband tugged her arm. She sat. My hands were shaking now, but not from grief, from rage. Pure, white-hot rage that I had to swallow down because this was Robert's funeral, and I would not let it become about Patricia's cruelty. I understand, I said, my voice carrying across the silent room as I slowly sat back down. Please, continue with the program. Patricia turned just enough for me to see her profile. She was smiling. As Robert's business partner took the podium, beginning a speech about quarterly earnings and market expansions, I heard Patricia whisper something to Morrison again. This time, I caught 2 words: bank and tomorrow. After the service, as guests filed toward the reception hall, Patricia cornered me by the memorial photo display. Morrison stood beside her, briefcase in hand, looking deeply uncomfortable. Margaret, we need to discuss practical matters. Patricia's voice was all business now. I'll be handling Robert's estate, naturally. I'm his wife. We're his wife. She examined her manicure. Death changes everything, doesn't it? Harold, tell her about the accounts. Morrison cleared his throat. Mrs. Turner, Margaret, the joint accounts were frozen this morning. Standard procedure, you understand. Frozen? My voice cracked. But I need to pay for... Don't worry about the funeral expenses, Patricia interrupted smoothly. I've already handled everything. As for the house... She paused, savoring the moment. Well, we'll need to review the paperwork, won't we? The house. Our house. Where Robert had carried me over the threshold, where we'd planned to raise children, where his reading glasses still sat on the nightstand, waiting for him to come home. Robert said he'd taken care of everything, I managed. He said, men say a lot of things when they're dying. Patricia's tone was almost pitying. But grief makes people forget important details, like updating wills, like putting assets in both names, like protecting wives who brought nothing to the marriage. Nothing. I'd brought nothing except 12 years of love, of caring for him through chemo, of holding his hand through every treatment. Jennifer appeared at my elbow. Mom, this isn't the time. There's a memorial luncheon starting, Patricia announced loudly, cutting her off. Family only, of course. Margaret, I'm sure you understand. You must be exhausted. Perhaps you should go home and rest. Home. To the house she was already planning to take. Morrison wouldn't meet my eyes. About the will, Patricia continued, her voice dropping so only Morrison and I could hear. Harold's been through Robert's files. There seems to be nothing recent. The last will on file is from 5 years ago. 5 years ago. Before we bought the house. Before Robert's promotion to CEO. Before the investment portfolio that he'd worked so hard to build. That's impossible. My throat felt like sandpaper. Robert was meticulous. He would never... Denial is a stage of grief, dear. Patricia's sympathy was as fake as her eyelashes. The will we have leaves everything to his mother. That would be me. I watched maintenance staff already beginning to pack up Robert's memorial flowers. Flowers I'd selected, arrangements I'd approved just yesterday. Patricia nodded to one of them. Send the white roses to my house. Robert always loved white roses. They were my favorite, not his. Robert preferred sunflowers. But correcting her felt pointless now. Your personal belongings, Patricia continued, checking her phone. I'll give you the weekend to collect them. Just your clothes and such. The furniture, the art, the jewelry. All marital assets that need to be properly evaluated. My engagement ring? My hand went instinctively to the 2-carat diamond Robert had proposed with at sunset on Coronado Beach. Especially the ring. It's a Turner family heirloom, after all. It wasn't. Robert had chosen it himself, spent months saving for it. But I realized with cold clarity that Patricia would rewrite history however she needed. Jennifer stepped forward again. Mom, for God's sake. Harold will send you the formal paperwork Monday, Patricia spoke over her daughter. Until then, I suggest you make arrangements. Perhaps your family could help? My family. My father was gone. My mother in a nursing home with dementia. I had no one. Patricia knew that. If you've ever felt powerless in a family situation, you'll understand what I went through next. Have you ever been excluded by in-laws who thought you weren't good enough? Share your experience in the comments below. Sometimes knowing we're not alone in these struggles makes all the difference. And if this story resonates with you, please hit that like button. It really helps others who might need to hear this find the video. Now let me tell you about the moment everything escalated. The reception hall was buzzing with conversation when Patricia approached me again, this time with an audience. She waited until I was surrounded by Robert's colleagues before making her move. Margaret, there's one more thing. Her voice carried deliberately. The ring. I looked down at my wedding set, the engagement ring and matching band Robert had placed on my finger just 12 years ago. What about it? It needs to be returned to the family vault, today. The conversations around us stopped. Dr. Williams from Robert's oncology team was staring. Robert's secretary, Linda, had her phone out. This ring isn't a family heirloom, I said quietly. Robert bought it for me. I was with him at Cartier when... That's a $50,000 ring. Patricia's voice rose slightly. It belongs to the Turner family now. She reached for my hand. Actually reached for it, right there in front of everyone. I pulled back. Don't touch me. How dramatic. Patricia laughed, that tinkling society laugh she'd perfected at country clubs. Everyone, Margaret's being emotional. Understandable, of course. I said don't touch me. My voice was steady, louder now. Patricia's hand shot forward again, this time gripping my wrist, her nails dug into my skin. That ring is coming off your finger today. Let go of her! Jennifer's voice cracked across the room. She was pushing through the crowd, her face flushed. Mother, stop it! But Patricia held on, her grip tightening. Someone gasped. Multiple phones were recording now. That's when Harold Morrison stepped between us, gently but firmly breaking Patricia's grip. Mrs. Turner, Patricia, perhaps we should discuss this privately. Patricia straightened her jacket, completely unruffled. There's nothing to discuss. She knows what needs to happen. The entire room was staring. At my husband's funeral reception, I'd just been physically accosted by his mother, and we were just getting started. The crowd formed a circle around us, everyone pretending not to stare while obviously staring. Patricia squared her shoulders, ready for battle. You were never good enough for him. Her voice was ice. Robert loved me. Simple. True. Love doesn't pay bills. I worked. I contributed. Waitressing? She laughed. How much could that contribute? I haven't waitressed in 8 years. My voice stayed level. I'm a marketing director. At that little nonprofit? Another dismissive laugh. Robert carried you. Robert and I were partners. Partners? Her eyes glittered. You trapped him. The accusation hung in the air. Everyone waited. We tried for children for 5 years. Each word deliberate. The IVF failed, 3 times. Someone in the crowd whispered, "Oh my God." Patricia's face flushed. "That's not what I—" "Yes, it is." I met her gaze steadily. "Say it. Say what you really think. You were beneath him. I loved him. You wanted his money. I wanted him healthy." My voice cracked for the first time. I wanted him alive. The room was dead silent. Even Patricia seemed momentarily stunned. Then Morrison cleared his throat. "Perhaps we should all take a moment. I have rights," I said, looking directly at Patricia. "Legal rights as his widow." Patricia's composure returned instantly. "Prove it." 2 words, a challenge, a declaration of war. "The will reading is in 1 week," Morrison announced suddenly, loudly enough for everyone to hear. "All beneficiaries will be notified." Patricia smiled that cold smile again. "I look forward to it." She turned on her designer heel and walked away, leaving me standing there in front of 200 witnesses. But Morrison stayed behind just long enough to slip something into my hand. His business card, with something written on the back. Patricia wasn't done. She never was when she had an audience. She clinked her champagne glass, commanding the room's attention. "Before we continue celebrating Robert's life, I think everyone should know the truth." My stomach dropped. Jennifer started pushing through the crowd. "Mother, don't—" Margaret was a waitress when Robert met her. Patricia's voice carried perfectly, years of society gatherings having trained her in public speaking. 26 years old, serving coffee at a diner. True, I'd been working my way through night school. She saw an opportunity, Patricia continued, warming to her theme. A lonely businessman eating alone. Also true. Robert had been going through his first divorce. She pursued him relentlessly. False. He'd asked me out 17 times before I said yes. Got herself pregnant within a year. The cruelest lie. We'd lost that baby at 11 weeks. Robert had cried for days. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone was live streaming on Instagram. I could see myself on their phone screen, standing frozen while Patricia destroyed me. But the pregnancy conveniently disappeared. She made air quotes around disappeared. And Robert, sweet fool that he was, had already married her. "You're talking about a miscarriage," I said, my voice cutting through her performance. "You're standing at your son's funeral, talking about our miscarriage." The room went silent. Someone dropped a glass. Patricia's mask slipped for just a second, then she recovered. "I'm simply explaining why Robert's assets need to be protected. From someone who targeted him from day one." Linda, Robert's secretary, stepped forward. "Mrs. Turner, Patricia, this is inappropriate." "What's inappropriate?" Patricia snapped. "Is a gold digger thinking she'll profit from my son's death." The words hung in the air like a physical blow. 200 people watched me stand there, being called a gold digger at my husband's funeral. Someone would definitely post this online. Morrison appeared at my elbow, gently guiding me away from the crowd. "Mrs. Turner, Margaret, we need to speak privately." He led me to a quiet corner near the memorial guest book, away from the phones and stares. His face was troubled, conflicted. "Your husband was a very thorough man," he said quietly, glancing around to ensure Patricia wasn't within earshot. "Very thorough." "What does that mean?" "It means he came to see me 2 weeks ago." Morrison's voice dropped even lower. "He was concerned about certain things." 2 weeks ago, Robert had been in hospice by then, barely able to stay awake for more than an hour. He was too sick to— He made the effort. Morrison pulled out his phone, showed me a calendar entry. Tuesday, October 3rd, 2 p.m. He insisted on coming to my office. "But Patricia said there was no new will." Morrison's jaw tightened. "Patricia says a lot of things." Before I could respond, he glanced over my shoulder. Patricia was approaching, her radar apparently alerting her to our private conversation. "I can't say more now," Morrison whispered quickly. "But be at the will reading. No matter what happens between now and then, be there." "Harold," Patricia's voice was sharp, "what are you discussing with her?" Morrison smoothly pocketed his phone. "Simply explaining the timeline for next week's reading, Patricia." She looked between us suspiciously. "Margaret won't need to attend. There's nothing for her." "Actually," Morrison said carefully, "all potential beneficiaries should attend. Legal requirement." Patricia's eyes narrowed. "Potential beneficiaries? Standard procedure." His face revealed nothing. "1 week from today, 2 p.m. My office." He handed Patricia a business card too, identical to mine. But I'd already memorized what he'd written on the back of mine. "Your husband knew. He prepared. Trust the process." Jennifer found me in the parking lot, mascara streaking down her cheeks. She looked around nervously before approaching, as if afraid her mother might materialize from thin air. "Margaret, wait." She grabbed my arm gently, so different from her mother's grip. "I need to tell you something." "Jennifer, you don't have to, Yes, I do." She pulled me behind a large SUV, out of sight from the funeral home windows. "2 weeks ago, Robert called me, from the hospice." My heart stuttered. The same day he'd seen Morrison. He could barely talk, but he insisted. Jennifer's words came in a rush. "He needed me to witness something. Sign papers." "What papers?" "I don't know exactly. Morrison was there with a notary. Robert made me promise not to tell Mother." She glanced around again. "He said it was about a special account, something he'd set up years ago." Patricia said there were no accounts. Jennifer's laugh was bitter. "Patricia doesn't know everything, despite what she thinks. Robert was smarter than she gave him credit for." A car door slammed nearby. We both jumped. "There's more," Jennifer whispered urgently. "Robert told me to watch out for you. He said when the time came, I'd know what to do." "What does that mean?" "I don't know yet. But Margaret," she squeezed my hands, "don't let her drive you away. Don't leave town. Whatever she does this week, don't run. She's going to take everything." "Maybe." Jennifer's eyes were fierce now, reminding me suddenly of Robert. Or maybe my brother knew exactly what his mother was capable of. Maybe he planned for it. Patricia's voice carried across the parking lot. "Jennifer, we're leaving!" Jennifer squeezed my hands once more. "Be at that reading, promise me." "I promise." She hurried away, leaving me with more questions than answers. I was walking back into the funeral home to retrieve my coat when Patricia's voice boomed over the sound system. She'd commandeered the microphone at the podium. "Excuse me, everyone." Her tone was honeyed poison. "I need to make an announcement." The entire reception hall turned to look. I froze in the doorway. "It has come to my attention that we have someone here who is no longer welcome." Patricia's eyes found mine across the room. "Margaret, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." Gasps echoed through the hall. Someone dropped their coffee cup. It shattered on the marble floor. "This is my husband's funeral," I said, my voice somehow steady despite the trembling in my legs. "Was your husband," Patricia emphasized each word. "And this is my event. I paid for it. I organized it. And I decide who attends." Dr. Williams stepped forward. "Mrs. Turner, surely this isn't—" "Security!" Patricia called out sharply. 2 uniformed security guards appeared. Patricia had hired security for her son's funeral. She'd planned this. "You're not welcome here anymore," Patricia announced, still using the microphone so everyone could hear. "Please escort this woman out." The guards approached me reluctantly. The younger one whispered, "Ma'am, we're very sorry, but I'll go." I held my head high, though my heart was shattering. "I don't need to be escorted out like a criminal." "Actually, you do." Patricia's smile was vicious. "I want to make sure you leave." 200 people watched, filmed, as security guards flanked me, one on each side. The walk to the door felt like a mile. Phones tracked my every step. Someone was definitely live streaming. As I passed Patricia, she leaned in close enough for only me to hear. "You were never good enough for my son. Never." The doors closed behind me with a definitive thud. My husband's funeral, and I'd been thrown out like trash. The parking lot felt like a spotlight stage. People had followed, spilling out of the funeral home to watch the spectacle continue. I could hear the whispers, see the phone cameras tracking my every move. My hands shook as I searched for my keys. Where were my keys? My purse, I'd left it inside at my seat. "Her purse is inside," someone said loudly. "She can't even leave." The security guards looked uncomfortable. The older one spoke quietly. "Ma'am, if you tell us where your things are, we can—" The funeral home doors burst open. Patricia emerged, holding my purse like it was contaminated. She walked toward me with deliberate slowness, making sure everyone got a good photo. "Forgetting something?" She held my purse just out of reach. "Typical. Robert always said you were forgetful." Robert had never said that. He'd actually teased me about my color-coded calendars and excessive lists. She dropped my purse at my feet. Contents spilled across the asphalt. Wallet, lipstick, the funeral program with Robert's smiling face, the speech I'd never gotten to read. I knelt to gather my things, my hands trembling. Someone's flash went off. Then another. I was on my knees in the parking lot of my husband's funeral, scrambling for my belongings while his mother stood over me. "This is what happens," Patricia announced to the crowd, "when people try to rise above their station." I stood slowly, purse clutched to my chest, and looked Patricia directly in the eyes. "I loved your son. That's all I ever did. Love him." "Love," she spat the word. "We'll see what your love is worth next week." I got in my car, started the engine, and drove away. In the rearview mirror, I could see people still filming. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Morrison. "Will reading in 1 week. Do not miss it." 3 days later, I was in bed at 2 p.m., still wearing Robert's old Columbia sweatshirt, when the doorbell rang. Then rang again. Then someone pounded on the door. "Margaret Turner, this is the sheriff's department. Please open the door." I stumbled downstairs, confused and disheveled. 2 sheriff's deputies stood on my porch. Behind them, Patricia waited by a black town car, arms crossed, triumph written across her face. "Ma'am, we have an eviction notice," the deputy said apologetically. "The property owner has requested immediate vacation of the premises." The property owner? I was still half asleep, grief fogged. "This is my house, mine and Robert's." "Actually," Patricia stepped forward, waving a document, "it's mine, always has been." She handed me the papers. The house deed, with Patricia Turner listed as sole owner. "That's impossible. Robert and I bought this house together. I was at the closing." "You were at a closing." Patricia's smile was razor sharp. "But check the date on that deed. I bought this house 2 days before your little ceremony. Robert asked me to, said it was for tax purposes." My legs went weak. Robert had said his mother was helping with the down payment, that having her on the initial paperwork would help with the loan. He'd said we'd fix it later. We never did. "You have 1 hour to collect your personal belongings," the deputy said, clearly uncomfortable. "Clothing, toiletries, medications, no furniture, no electronics purchased during the marriage." 1 hour? I looked at the home I'd shared with Robert for 5 years. To pack up my entire life? 58 minutes now, Patricia checked her diamond watch. "Better hurry." The deputies followed me inside, watching as I threw clothes into suitcases. Patricia supervised, determining what I could and couldn't take. Not that jewelry box. That was Robert's grandmother's. It wasn't. I'd bought it at an antique store in Coronado, but I had no proof, no receipts, no way to fight. At this point, I had lost everything: my husband, my home, my dignity. But sometimes, when you think you've hit rock bottom, that's when truth has a way of surfacing. If you're still watching, thank you for staying with my story. What would you have done in my situation? Would you have fought back right then, or waited for the right moment? Let me know in the comments. The will reading is coming up next, and trust me, nobody saw this coming. 1 week after the funeral, I sat in the lobby of Morrison's law firm, wearing the only decent outfit Patricia hadn't watched me pack, a simple black dress Robert had bought me for our 10th anniversary. The receptionist kept glancing at me sympathetically. Word had clearly spread about the funeral incident. The video had gone viral in our community. Widow kicked out of husband's funeral had over 50,000 views on Facebook. The conference room was already full when Morrison's assistant escorted me in. 30 relatives occupied the long mahogany table and chairs along the walls. Patricia sat at the head like a CEO at a board meeting, flanked by her sister and brother. "Oh," Patricia's voice dripped false surprise. "I didn't think you'd actually come." Every head turned to stare. I recognized cousins, aunts, Robert's college roommate. Some looked away embarrassed. Others watched with naked curiosity. "Margaret has every right to be here," Morrison said firmly, entering behind me with a stack of documents and a laptop. "Please take a seat." The only empty chair was at the far end, by the door, as far from Patricia as possible. I sat. Morrison set up his laptop, connecting it to the large screen on the wall. "Before we begin, I need to inform everyone that this reading will be recorded for legal purposes." He positioned a professional camera on a tripod, ensuring everyone was in frame. "This is a requirement for estate readings of this magnitude. Any objections?" Patricia waved dismissively. "Get on with it, Harold." Morrison cleared his throat. "We are here for the reading of the last will and testament of Robert James Turner." Patricia leaned back in her chair, supremely confident. "Let's begin with the will provided by Mrs. Patricia Turner, dated 5 years ago." I noticed he said, "provided by Patricia," not Robert's will. Something in Morrison's tone made me sit up straighter. Morrison opened the folder with theatrical deliberation. "This will, dated January 15th, 5 years ago, states the following." He began reading in a monotone voice. "I, Robert James Turner, being of sound mind and body, do hereby leave all my worldly possessions, including but not limited to real estate, investments, bank accounts, and personal property, to my mother, Patricia Ann Turner." Patricia's smile could have lit up Times Square. She looked directly at me, savoring every word. "This includes," Morrison continued, "the portfolio valued at approximately $3 million, the vacation home in Aspen, the boat, both vehicles, and all contents of any safety deposit boxes." Gasps echoed around the room. Even Patricia's siblings looked shocked at the amount. Jennifer shifted uncomfortably in her seat. "That will is 5 years old. Surely Robert updated." "If he had," Patricia cut her off smoothly, "Harold would have it, wouldn't you?" Morrison's face remained neutral. "I'm reading what was filed with the court. You see?" Patricia turned to address the room like she was giving a presentation. "Robert knew I would handle his estate properly, not some waitress who—" "Marketing director," I corrected quietly. "Whatever," she waved dismissively. "The point is, Robert protected his assets. He made the right choice." The relatives murmured among themselves. Some nodded approvingly, others looked uncomfortable. Robert's college roommate, Dave, wouldn't meet my eyes. "Is that everything?" Patricia asked Morrison, already starting to rise from her chair. Morrison slowly closed the folder. "That concludes the reading of the will dated 5 years ago." Patricia stood fully, smoothing her skirt. "Well then, I suppose." "However," Morrison's voice cut through the room like a blade. Patricia froze. "There is a codicil." "A what?" Patricia's voice went sharp. "A codicil, an addition to the will." Morrison pulled out his laptop. "Dated 2 weeks ago." The room went absolutely silent. "That's impossible," Patricia's voice cracked. "Robert was barely conscious 2 weeks ago. He couldn't—" "Nevertheless," Morrison clicked on his laptop. The screen on the wall came to life. "This video was recorded on October 3rd at 2:47 p.m. in my office." The image that appeared made everyone gasp. Robert, my Robert, sitting in Morrison's office chair. Thin, pale, but absolutely lucid. His eyes, those warm brown eyes, looked directly at the camera. If you're watching this, Robert's recorded voice filled the room. It means my mother has tried to steal from my wife. Patricia's face went white. This is fake. This has to be. Please let the video play, Morrison said firmly. Robert continued. I am Robert James Turner. Today is October 3rd, 2024. I am here with my attorney Harold Morrison and witnesses Jennifer Turner, my sister, and Dr. Marcus Williams, my oncologist, who can attest to my mental clarity. The camera panned to show Jennifer and Dr. Williams nodding. Jennifer had been crying. 2 days ago, Robert's voice was getting stronger. I discovered my mother had created fraudulent documents regarding my estate. She pressured me while I was medicated to sign papers I couldn't read. She told me they were medical forms. Lies! Patricia stood up. He was confused. The medications. Sit down, Patricia, Morrison commanded, or I'll have security escort you out. She sat, her hands trembling. Robert looked directly at the camera again. I am hereby revoking any will dated prior to today. My mother, Patricia Ann Turner, is to receive nothing from my estate, not 1 penny. Someone in the room whispered, Holy shit! Furthermore, Robert continued, I need to reveal something my mother never knew, something I've kept private for 5 years. Patricia gripped the table edge, her knuckles white. Margaret, Robert said, and my heart stopped. This is for you, my love. Robert's image leaned forward, his eyes intense despite his illness. 5 years ago, after Mother tried to control our wedding finances, I set up a trust, a private trust she knew nothing about. Patricia's mouth fell open. What trust? That's impossible. The Turner Marital Trust, Robert continued as if answering her. Funded with every bonus, every stock option, every investment profit from my personal portfolio. Not the family money, Mother. My money. Money I earned. Morrison pulled out a thick document. The trust documents, for anyone who'd like to review them. Margaret, Robert's voice softened on the recording. You are the sole beneficiary of this trust. As of today's recording, it contains $15 million. The room exploded. Patricia shot to her feet. 15 million? That's impossible. I would have known. You controlled the family accounts, Mother, Robert's recording continued, but you never knew about my private investment account. The one I started the day after our wedding, when you told Margaret she'd never be good enough for the Turner name. I couldn't breathe. $15 million. Robert had been saving, investing, protecting me all along. Jennifer has been co-trustee, Robert explained. She's been helping me manage it, keeping it safe from anyone who might try to take it. All eyes turned to Jennifer. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. It's all true, every word. You knew? Patricia turned on her daughter. You knew and you didn't tell me? I promised Robert, Jennifer said simply. I chose my brother over you, just like you chose money over family. Robert wasn't finished. The trust is ironclad, Mother. You can't contest it. You can't challenge it. Morrison has made sure of that. Morrison nodded. 3 different law firms have reviewed it. It's unbreakable. Patricia sank into her chair, her face gray. But Robert still wasn't done. Now, Mother, Robert's voice turned cold on the recording. Let's discuss what you did 2 days ago. The screen split, showing security footage from the hospice. Date stamp. October 1st, 2024, 11:47 p.m. There was Patricia sneaking into Robert's room after visiting hours. Robert was unconscious, hooked to multiple machines. She pulled papers from her purse, grabbed his limp hand, and pressed it to an ink pad. No, Patricia whispered in the conference room. No, no, no. On screen, Patricia pressed Robert's inked thumb to multiple documents. Then she took his hand and shakily guided it to sign something. "She's forging his signature," someone gasped. "While he's unconscious." "Those documents," Robert's voice continued, "were an attempt to transfer my personal accounts to her name. Fortunately, the bank requires video verification for transfers over $100,000. Morrison pulled out another folder. "The bank rejected all transfers. They've also filed a suspicious activity report with the authorities." "But that's not all," Robert said. The video showed another angle. Patricia going through Robert's medical chart, photographing pages. "She photographed my medical information to determine how long I had left." Robert's voice was disgusted now. "She was planning this, planning to take everything from my wife the moment I died." Dr. Williams spoke up from his seat. "I can confirm we found evidence of chart tampering. It's been reported to the hospital board." Patricia stood up, shaking. "This is entrapment. He set me up." "You set yourself up, Mother," Robert's voice cut through. "You always thought you were smarter than everyone. But I learned from the best. I learned from you." The room was dead silent except for Patricia's ragged breathing. "One more thing," Robert said. "Margaret, check the house deed. The real one." Morrison smiled and pulled out one final document. Morrison held up the document. "This is the actual deed to the Turner residence on Maple Drive, dated 3 years ago. Sole owner, Margaret Ann Turner." "What?" Patricia's scream could have shattered glass. "The deed you showed the sheriff was fraudulent," Morrison explained calmly. "Robert transferred the house to Margaret's name 3 years ago. You've been living in Margaret's house, Patricia. She can have you removed any time." Robert's voice came back on the recording. "The house you kicked my wife out of, Mother? It's hers. It's been hers for 3 years. I knew you'd try something like this. I prepared for it." Patricia swayed on her feet. "But the paperwork—" "I had paperwork. Forged," Morrison said simply. "We have the originals here, filed with the county. You committed fraud, Patricia. Multiple counts." "I want to make this crystal clear," Robert's recording continued. "Margaret inherits everything: the trust, the house, my personal effects, my retirement accounts, my life insurance, everything. 15 million in the trust, 2 million in life insurance, the house worth 1.8 million, and another million in various accounts." "Nearly $20 million, Morrison summarized. "All to Margaret." Patricia's legs gave out. She collapsed into her chair, then slid to the floor. "No, no, no." "Someone call 911, Jennifer said, but she didn't move to help her mother. As relatives scrambled to assist Patricia, Robert had one final message. "Margaret, my love, I'm sorry for what my mother put you through. I knew she would show her true colors when I was gone. That's why I made sure everything was recorded. The funeral home security cameras, the hospice footage, this video, everything." Paramedics rushed in as Patricia lay on the floor, conscious but unresponsive, staring at nothing. "One final clause," Robert said, as they lifted Patricia onto a stretcher. "Mother's inheritance? $1, so she can never say I forgot her." 2 weeks after the will reading, the full consequences began falling like dominoes. Morrison called me with updates every few days, each one more satisfying than the last. "The district attorney has filed charges," he informed me over coffee. 4 counts of fraud, 2 counts of forgery, and 1 count of elder financial abuse. Elder abuse. Because even though Robert was her son, he'd been a vulnerable adult in hospice care. "She's looking at serious jail time?" I asked. "Unlikely at her age, but she'll get probation, community service, and massive fines. Plus, she has to pay back the $500,000 she illegally transferred from Robert's business account the day he died." Patricia had been busy while I was planning the funeral. She'd moved fast, thinking Robert's death meant she could grab everything before anyone noticed. "The country club has revoked her membership," Morrison continued. "Turns out they have a morality clause. Fraud doesn't look good on their reputation." That would hurt Patricia more than any fine. She'd been a member for 30 years, held court there every Tuesday for bridge, every Saturday for tennis. It was her entire social world. Jennifer called that evening. Mom's had to sell the Mercedes and the vacation condo in Florida to pay legal fees and the restitution. She's moving into a one-bedroom apartment in Riverside. From a 5-bedroom estate in La Jolla to a one-bedroom in Riverside. The social fall was complete. How is she handling it? I asked, surprising myself by caring. She's not, Jennifer said bluntly. She keeps saying this is all a misunderstanding, that Robert was confused, that you manipulated him. Even with the video evidence? She's convinced herself it was all fake, deep fakes or something. Jennifer sighed. She's lost everything, Margaret. Her money, her reputation, her friends, even her family. You're still her family. No, Jennifer said firmly. I'm your family now. The family fracture was complete and public. The video from the funeral had indeed gone viral, not just locally, but nationally. Evil mother-in-law kicks widow out of funeral had been picked up by several online news outlets. But it was the will reading video that really exploded. Someone, I never found out who, had leaked portions of it. Patricia trying to forge Robert's signature became a meme. When you think you're getting everything but get served instead trended for 3 days. Patricia's sister called me of all people. This is your fault, she hissed. You've destroyed our family name. Patricia destroyed it herself, I replied calmly. I just survived it. The relatives who'd watched Patricia humiliate me at the funeral began reaching out. Apologetic emails, Facebook messages, even handwritten cards. Robert's college roommate Dave sent a long letter explaining how Patricia had threatened to disinherit Robert if any of his friends supported me. We were cowards, he wrote. Robert would be ashamed of us. Jennifer became my fiercest defender. She went on local news to tell the story, bringing receipts, literally. She had copies of everything. Patricia's forged documents, the real house deed, even recordings of Patricia planning to contest any will that favored me. My mother thought she was above consequences, Jennifer told the reporter. She thought money meant power, but my brother knew better. He knew love meant protection. The country club wives who'd been Patricia's friends for decades distanced themselves immediately. Martha Wellington, Patricia's best friend, was quoted in the local society paper. We always knew Patricia was controlling, but this level of deception, it's unconscionable. The Turner family name, which Patricia had guarded so jealously, was now synonymous with fraud and greed. But perhaps the cruelest cut was when the family patriarch, Robert's Uncle James, officially removed Patricia from the Turner family trust board. You've dishonored us all, he said publicly. 3 months after Robert's death, I stood at a podium in the Hilton Ballroom, addressing 200 people, many of the same who'd witnessed my humiliation. The Robert Turner Memorial Foundation will provide financial assistance to widows and widowers facing estate disputes, I announced, because no one should lose their dignity along with their spouse. The foundation was Jennifer's idea. Use Robert's money to help others facing what I'd faced, turn our pain into purpose. The first donation, surprisingly, came from Robert's Uncle James. Robert would be proud, he said simply, handing me a check for $100,000. Dr. Williams joined the board. So did Morrison, who offered pro bono legal services for the foundation's beneficiaries. Even Linda, Robert's secretary, volunteered to help with administration. I should have spoken up at the funeral, Linda admitted. I knew what Patricia was capable of. Robert complained about her for years. The local news covered the foundation launch. They played clips from the funeral video, Patricia throwing me out, contrasted with me now, using Robert's money to help others. From humiliation to humanitarian, the anchor said. Margaret Turner transforms tragedy into triumph. I received hundreds of emails from people with similar stories. Widows kicked out of homes, widowers whose in-laws stole their children's inheritance, families torn apart by greed. Each story reminded me why Robert had prepared so carefully. He'd known exactly what his mother would do. He'd protected me even in death. The foundation's first beneficiary was a young widow named Sarah. Her husband's parents had taken everything while she was planning his funeral, just like Patricia had tried to do. "You give me hope," Sarah told me, crying. "Hope that justice exists." We helped her recover her husband's life insurance and their joint savings. It took Morrison 2 weeks to untangle the fraud. Patricia, I heard, was following the news from her Riverside apartment. She never commented publicly. 6 months after Robert's death, Patricia appeared at my door. Now legally and rightfully my door. She looked older, smaller, her designer clothes replaced with off-the-rack polyester. "May I come in?" Her voice had lost its commanding edge. I could have slammed the door. Instead, I stepped aside. 5 minutes. She sat in the living room she'd once claimed as hers, looking at Robert's photos still displayed on the mantel. "I need help," she said quietly. "Financial help?" I kept my voice neutral. "I can't make rent. The legal fees, the restitution." She trailed off. "I have nothing left." The woman who'd called me a gold digger was now asking for gold. "You have your Social Security," I pointed out. "Your pension from when you worked." "It's not enough." Her hands trembled. "Not for California. You need to move somewhere cheaper." I remained standing. "Texas, maybe. Arizona." "But my life is here." "Your life here is over, Patricia. You made sure of that." She looked up at me, and for the first time, I saw tears. "I'm sorry." "No," I said calmly. "You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry there were consequences. You're not sorry for what you did. I loved my son. You loved controlling him. There's a difference." She stood to leave, then turned back. "Will you at least let me visit his grave?" This I had considered. "First Sunday of each month, 9 a.m. I won't be there. If you come any other time, I'll have you arrested for trespassing." "That's cruel." "That's boundaries." I opened the door. "Something Robert tried to teach me. Turns out, you were the perfect teacher." She left without another word. I never saw her again, though the cemetery confirmed she came monthly, like clockwork, always alone. A year after Robert's death, I sat in the office of the foundation we'd created, looking at his photo on my desk. Not a day passed without missing him, but the acute pain had transformed into something else: purpose. "Boundaries aren't cruel," I told the support group I now led. "They're necessary." 20 faces looked back at me. Widows and widowers, all fighting their own battles with greedy relatives. Each Tuesday, we met in the community center, sharing stories and strategies. "My mother-in-law taught me something valuable," I continued. "She showed me that forgiveness doesn't mean accepting disrespect. You can forgive someone and still never let them back into your life." Sarah, our first beneficiary, raised her hand. "But family is supposed to. Family is supposed to love you, not rob you." My voice was firm. "When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. And when they show you at your most vulnerable moment, at your spouse's funeral, believe them absolutely." I thought about Patricia's tears, her request for help. 6 months ago, I might have wavered. Robert's kindness might have made me cave, but Robert's wisdom had also prepared me. "The person who truly loved you would want you protected," I said, "even from their own family." After the meeting, Morrison stopped by with paperwork for 3 new cases. "You've changed," he observed. "You're stronger." "I'm not stronger," I corrected. "I just have better boundaries." He smiled. "Robert would be proud." "Robert would be relieved," I said. "He knew this would happen, every bit of it. He prepared me not just financially but emotionally. Those videos, that evidence. He was teaching me that it's okay to stand up for yourself. Even against family? Especially against family. They're the ones who can hurt you most." That night, I visited Robert's grave alone. "Thank you," I whispered, "for protecting me, for teaching me, for loving me enough to plan for the worst. The headstone, of course, couldn't answer, but somewhere, I felt Robert smiling. Today marks 2 years since Robert's death. The foundation has helped 847 families recover over $50 million in stolen assets. We've expanded to 3 states, with Jennifer running the East Coast office. I still live in the house Patricia tried to steal. Not because I need to. I could afford 10 houses now, but because Robert loved this home. His roses still bloom in the garden. His coffee mug still sits by the kitchen window where he'd watch birds every morning. Patricia died 6 months ago, alone in her Riverside apartment. The landlord found her after neighbors complained about newspapers piling up. Jennifer handled the arrangements. I paid for a decent burial next to Robert's father. Not for Patricia, but for Robert. He would have wanted his mother treated with dignity, even if she'd never offered it to others. At her funeral, only 5 people attended. The pastor, Jennifer, her husband, Morrison, and me. The woman who'd lived for social status died without it. She never learned, Jennifer said afterward. Even at the end, she blamed everyone but herself. I've learned so much these 2 years. That love isn't just emotion, it's preparation and protection. That family isn't blood, it's choice. That dignity isn't about what others think, it's about how you treat yourself. The young widow who wrote to me last week asked, "How do you forgive someone who tried to destroy you?" I wrote back, "You don't have to forgive them. You just have to forgive yourself for whatever you need to do to protect yourself. Boundaries aren't punishment, they're self-preservation." Robert's love gave me more than financial security. It gave me the strength to stand up for myself, even against those who claimed to be family. His greatest gift wasn't the money. It was showing me I was worth protecting. And that's a lesson no one can ever take away. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've ever been disrespected by family members who thought you weren't good enough, remember this: your worth isn't determined by their opinion. You deserve respect, especially in your darkest moments. What would you have done differently? Have you ever had to set firm boundaries with toxic in-laws? Share your thoughts below. Your story might help someone else going through the same thing. If this story helped you, please like and subscribe. Every share helps us reach someone who needs to hear this message. And remember, document everything, always. You never know when truth will be your strongest weapon.